Good morning. Welcome again to Morning Devotions, and thank you again for our time together. We're still going to be working on the Church of Sardis tonight in Revival Nights, especially focusing on going to the river of delights, following Jesus, being dressed in white, robes washed in the blood of the Lamb, and following Jesus to that beautiful river of the Spirit. So we'll have a great time in the service tonight. But right now, let's look back at Acts chapter 24, beginning with verse 24. Several days later, Felix came with his wife Drusilla, who was a Jewess. He sent for Paul and listened to him as he spoke about faith in Christ Jesus. As Paul discoursed on righteousness, self-control, and judgment to come, Felix was afraid and said, "That's enough for now. You may leave. When I find it convenient, I'll send for you." At the same time, he was hoping Paul would offer him a bribe, so he sent for him frequently and talked with him. But Paul never did give a bribe. But Paul would take the opportunity to share the gospel. Now I want you to notice how good preaching from the Apostle Paul involved four things. It involved faith in Jesus. It involved righteousness. It involved self-control. And it involved the judgment to come. Now that's fascinating to me, because all four of those things are not preached about very much today. Righteousness, faith in Jesus, self-control, the judgment to come. Those are not popular subjects in the modern church world, but for Paul, this was how he presented the gospel. This is how he sat down with an unsaved man, a very wealthy unsaved man, a king, and presented the gospel. Now the result of it was Felix was afraid. Oh, I don't ever want people to feel afraid when they come to church. Well, then maybe you're very different than the Apostle Paul. Paul, his preaching showing the judgment to come, put fear in a man's life. And forgive me, people need to be afraid of hell. Forgive me, people need to be afraid of the judgment to come. They need to be afraid of the great tribulation. They need to be afraid of these things. These are awful things that are coming. They need to be afraid of the lake of fire and eternal judgment. That's an awful thing. Maybe we need to teach people a little bit more about the consequences of life to come. And then people will live a little better. So let's back up and look at how we share the gospel. Do we talk about faith in Jesus? Do we talk about righteousness or right standing with God? Do we talk about self-control? Do we talk about the judgment of come? These are all part and parcel of a good presentation of the gospel.